We have talked about this for a while. We've mentioned it here and there in videos. Well, today, it is time for the full light video. It is time to bring the evidence all together into one place. There is a lot of evidence, and by the time that the end of this video arrives, you will understand a lot more of what's been going on behind the scenes in World of Warcraft. The potential for the light to be an expansion's primary villain is exactly what we are going to show you in today's video. We're going to do the full rundown from Scarlet Fanaticism of the past to what actually happened on Draenor, even before Yrel, and right up to the latest lore of the game. So, when we look at all the evidence, it is clear that the light is coming for us. But if you're like me, then you'll want to be able to see the light clearly, and to do that, you are going to need to hit up GlassesUSA.com, today's sponsor. Now here's the thing, I need glasses, have done for a good while. I've never liked shopping for them though. The whole thing tends to be an overpriced hassle, but not with GlassesUSA.com. By cutting out the middleman, they offer prescription glasses at up to 70% off, and if you click my link down below, you're going to get a great offer and free shipping. Now, for me, one of the things, it's always hard to know what glasses actually work, and that's where the virtual mirror came in, because you see, using the virtual mirror, plus their very, very large range of glasses, that means I could quickly see what a whole bunch look like, and that is so much better than going into a shop and slowly trying on a very limited range. And also, they've got an app that scans your current glasses and tells you what your prescription is. That's kind of magic. Now, what I really loved is that because the whole process was really easy, I was able to get glasses to cover all my bases. So I really like rimless ones for work. These were like half the price of the last rimless ones that I got, which is pretty sweet. But also, I've never owned prescription sunglasses before, but now I've got two sort of shade style ones, and then I've also got these, which are in a more regular frame, which is really nice to have. And then also, I've got these big blue light filtering boys, which is super important for eye strain. I mean, come on, I'm under studio lights all day for my job, and it's stuff I didn't have before. So GlassesUSA.com, they're the place to go for glasses, and you'll get a special offer, free shipping with my link down below, and the whole thing is risk-free with a 100% money-back guarantee. So, thank you to GlassesUSA.com for, well, upping my glasses game and helping the channel out. Thanks to them, and with that, let's go and let's talk about the light. We must consider the war that is coming. Not Shadowlands, the one after that. And come on, it's World of Warcraft. There will be one. Medivh disappeared a handful of years ago, likely to deal with it. The Ethereals have been acting very shifty if you've been watching our Ethereal videos. Xalatath is out there in the cosmos with her fresh body, as is Ashara, who, you know, escaped in patch 8.3. And we believe that this conflict will be so huge, this cosmic conflict, that it will take place over several expansions. But right now, we believe there is ample evidence that in fact, the light will make the first move. We must begin with history. The purging of Stratholme was part enabled by the light, and it's a great example of two light-wielding individuals, Uther and Arthas, one good, the other evil. Arthas, in that day, used the light to kill thousands, so you can do bad things with the light. Of course, fast forward to when World of Warcraft happened, and the remnants of the living of Lordaeron had banded together and formed the Scarlet Crusade, which is our first showing of the light being used successfully for pure evil on an organizational level. And what's key to understand here is that light does not conform to morality. You could think that you are doing good. You could be dedicated to your cause, and even if you are doing objectively evil things like the Scarlets did, the light would still flow through you. Next, we must take this to the Burning Crusade. The Burning Crusade expanded our conception of the light via the Naru, who of course are our closest thing to a personification of the cosmic force that is the light. And these Naru are the lens through which we are going to come to understand a antagonistic light. And what's important to understand before we leave the Burning Crusade is the Blood Elves. They actually captured a Naru and they began draining the light from it. and that enabled the Order of Blood Knights, who were, of course, for all intents and purposes, just Horde paladins. But that is very key because paladins are still warriors of the light, even though in this case the light was subservient. The light was basically this Naru forcibly having its energy drained. And I think what's key here is those Blood Knights, they could still use the light, even though they were consciously abusing it with how they treated that Naru. So you don't even necessarily need to believe in the light to use it, you just need to have conviction, such as Liadrin wanting the best for her people. Do that and you can use the light. Now, from launch up until Cataclysm, the light was primarily shown to be in opposition to the undead and demons, a very powerful tool primarily of the good guys that was only occasionally used for selfish ends. It was something that we would just think is good. Mists of Pandaria slowly began to change that, though, when a young Anduin Wrynn used the light and its opposite, the void, at the same time. Now, this moment is mirrored in the latest World of Warcraft novel, Shadows Rising, where Anduin once again toys with the void. And that is something that now, at this point of time in the lore, he knows is very dangerous. And of course, you then think that the Naru have got their cycle between light and void. And I think if you think about that, you can infer much. If a good light Naru can turn into an evil void Naru, then what does that really say for the true nature of either force, or indeed the true nature of the Naru themselves? Much of the lore of Draenor is in fact built upon this light-void duality, but it's a part of the lore that most players are just not aware of, and that is High Arakoan society and its gods. You have Seath, who embodied the void, Rukmar, who embodied the light, and Anzu, who represented balance. Now, the story there is that Seath eventually betrayed the other two, and this led High Arakoan society to turn completely away from the void and the notion of balance. They went fully behind Rukmar and the light, and this led to a society that was brutal in its purity and its fanatical desire to cleanse its world of other races. This was the first time that we saw a whole society that really represented the duality of light and void, but ultimately did fall to one, showing us the dire consequences of either side winning. Of course, many years later, in the alternative timeline of Warlords of Draenor, Yrel was freed, and as you will see, in the years after Archimonde's defeat, well, that fanaticism that characterized the High Arakoan civilization and its moral fall, that would take both her and her people. The Burning Legion's third attempt on Azeroth was really Blizzard's opportunity to expand the cosmic narrative, both in-game and then through Warcraft Chronicle, a series of lore books. Legion is really where the true suspicion of the light began. On one hand, the lore suggested that the light was this unconscious force in the universe, just a fundamental building block. But on the other hand, Xalatath referred to the Naru, our main personification of the light, as wayward brethren, and then called Elune an upstart goddess. These are some monumental claims from Xalatath, but it's the way that she views the difference between light and void that is key. And for that, listen to this.
The light would have your kind remain obedient and stagnant. I offer the gifts of freedom and strength. I hope you remember my kindness.
That was Xalatath saying that the difference isn't necessarily between good and evil, it's about how you achieve your goals. It's about how the forces operate. The life that light wants for you is stagnant and full of servitude. And this means that if you, as an individual, support liberty, then the light would be a natural enemy to you. Of course, within Legion, Illyria would then soon appear to show us how the void can indeed be used for good. But before we met her, Khadgar decided to research the mysterious fragment of Xera that eventually would lead us to the Army of the Light. And this is major, because after doing his research, Khadgar concluded that Xera and the other Prime Naru were most likely creations of Elune. Elune, who Xalatath calls an upstart goddess. Now at that time, I don't think any of us did a great job of drawing these things together because we thought that Elune was still pure good. But as you'll soon see, recent events have wholly changed our view on her. Of course, it's Legion's End, though, that brought with it our most clear example of the light being evil, and that is obviously in the form of Illidan's final interaction with Xera. The Prime Naru had really built up this whole prophecy where Illidan, as the child of light and shadow, would turn to the light, and in doing so, he would make Xera's crusade across the universe a reality. Illidan, of course, destroyed her, rejecting servitude, not wanting to trade in his liberty for power as he had done before. Illidan was really saying that his personhood, even the truly terrible elements of his life, that was preferable to servitude to the light. And when the light finally does invade, and we do believe it will, this conflict between liberty and servitude will play out on a far grander scale. And the really spooky thing is that while Xera may be gone, the Light Mother has came onto the scene. And to explain that, we must cover Battle for Azeroth. Before the Fourth War truly kicked off, a group of Mag'har orcs came to Orgrimmar, and they stated that many years had in fact passed on AU Draenor, that basically its timeline had caught up to ours, and that now the situation was out of control. After the fall of the Iron Horde, Yrel had the military machine of the Draenei at her back. Not only that, but a Naru, known as the Light Mother, was now the spiritual head of her people. And we don't know exactly who this Light Mother is, but if you look at the actions of Yrel's new, essentially, Army of the Light, I think we have a fair idea that it's actually AU Xera, or another Prime Naru with a similar goal. Yrel and the Light Mother began a crusade of conversion and cleansing across Draenor. Now, some of the Mag'har did escape that, but most were either killed or converted, including the son of Grommash Hellscream, who was indeed converted. Our Mag'har allies narrowly escaped a fanatical Draenei crusade, and those Draenei are now a group who, by now, a few years after, will have wholly consolidated their grip on the planet. So yes, Battle for Azeroth set up Yrel and the Night Mother as a major threat. That's not all, though. Not long after that, during the Darkshore campaign, we discovered the Night Warrior aspect of Elune. And this revelation of a dark, vengeful persona for Elune was a complete change in how we saw her as a goddess. It showed us that Elune was not pure good, not pure peace. We must remember now that, according to Khadgar's research, it is Elune who likely created the Prime Naru. That's the same Prime Naru who wanted to bind Illidan to their will and launch pretty much a universe-wide crusade of light. And, of course, the Prime Naru that have successfully radicalized Yrel and the Draenei on AU Draenor. Now, this is the Elune who also Xalatath calls an upstart goddess. Certainly, things are seeming a lot less morally clean and simple than they did in years gone by. With Blizzard being Blizzard, we can only expect that the Shadowlands era of lore will continue our exploration of these themes, of the light, of Elune. In Shadows Rising, Turalyon uses the light to chain civilians so that Illyria can torture information out of them with the void. Yes, light and void working together. And in that same novel, a wisp of void shoots down Anduin's arm as he attempts to actually interrogate Syra. Now, Blizzard actually mandated to the author of that book that that scene be there, and when we highlighted that in a lore video, she, Madeline Rue, reposted it. Yeah, that's kind of telling. Our good light characters are clearly capable of darkness, just like how the creator of the Prime Naru, Elune, is obviously capable of darkness, given what the Night Warrior persona can do. And also, we were shown that void characters like Illyria can be capable of good. Really is all getting more confusing, isn't it? When we actually arrive in the Shadowlands, though, we find out even more. We see even more. The light has breached the skies of Revendreth, burning the tortured souls that it touches. And then, below the ground of Revendreth, in the Sanguine Depths dungeon, what do we find? We find a Naru, and it's being researched. How did a Naru, a being that is not mortal, get into the Shadowlands, the place where mortal souls go? That's a big question. Then, over in Maldraxxus, we find something similar, but this time it's a void Naru. And what's more here is that neither Naru seem to be doing particularly well, and a Kyrian character later does tell us that light and void have no power in the Shadowlands. Yes, yet more mystery. More conflict regarding the light, and that's not even covering our Elune revelations, that Elune is indeed a cosmos-spanning goddess of multiple worlds and multiple peoples, not just the Night Elves. And certainly, whatever we learn about her Night Warrior persona as the Tyrande story unfolds will be extremely relevant. One thing is certain, though. If Elune created the Naru, and Naru can be evil, as Zira could be, then certainly the more we learn about Elune, the better, because I think she has many questions to answer. And now that we have the key evidence laid out, we can go into more detail, into what could actually happen should the light invade, and how our current cast of characters would likely respond. Yes, what if Yrel and her massive army, complete with Naru, invaded through the Dark Portal? How would Azeroth react? First up, Anduin Wrynn. He has a fluid attitude towards light and void. He's clearly a dedicated student. He dabbled with both in Mists of Pandaria and Shadows Rising. That Blizzard mandated that scene be in Shadows Rising really does suggest that Anduin's struggle, or perhaps interest, in the balance between those forces will be key to the future narrative. And really, I doubt that Anduin would instantly kneel down to Yrel's Light Mother, especially because I think in some ways he will turn out to be a bit more of his father's son than Mists of Pandaria may have suggested once he finds more of that inner strength. Perhaps he'll even meet Varian in the Shadowlands. It certainly would make sense. So I could even see the invasion of the light basically being so catastrophic that in some ways you have to wonder, would it turn Anduin to the void if he were to lose hope in the light, actually seeing the terrible things that it can do? Now moving on to Illyria and Turalyon, well, with their light-void torture combo, they're in a similarly precarious place. Their ability to see through the powers that they're characterized by and work together really could mean that they would be the people to offer resistance to an invasion, but we must be careful. Il'gynoth said this:
"The Golden One claims a vacant throne. The crown of light will bring only darkness."
Shadows Rising makes that quote significantly more relevant because in that book, Turalyon actually takes on stewardship of Stormwind. So that's what he's doing throughout Shadowlands, and you have to wonder, when will Anduin return from Shadowlands? Will he be king? Will, when the light arrives, actually Turalyon be the effective ruler of Stormwind? Because there would be nothing worse for us than for Yrel to come through the Dark Portal, Naru at her back and an army, and for Turalyon to see that, to see the light, to see something that looks like his army of light that he believed in, that he fought with in the 1,000 years of war, and for him to join the alliance up with them. And the thing is, Blizzard has done plot lines like this before, the de facto leader of a faction going a bit rogue, going a bit loopy. They've done that with Sylvanas and Garrosh, but they've never done it with the Alliance. Although they have long teased internal alliance conflicts on the horizon, and something like this could actually be that, especially since there is a little bit of tension there, because, as it turns out, the likes of Gen and Matthias would maybe have different ideas for who should be leading the alliance, at least in the military capacity, instead of Turalyon. Because, yes, Matthias does not prefer Turalyon for that role in the book. Then, as we move through the other characters, there's the likes of Calia Menethil, a light undead, which, like the demon Lothraxion, is a pretty novel thing. And if the light was to attack, then we can't really be sure if we can trust what she would do. Would she join? Would she resist? And the same goes for our Army of the Light, who of course currently reside on the Vindicar, a highly dangerous spaceship and weapons platform that is right now high above Azeroth's surface. Of course though, with the recent inclusion of the Mag'har orcs, I think one thing is for sure. The Horde are primed for a full counter-offensive against the Light, truly bringing back that freedom fighter vibe that really was the Thrall-era Horde. I think that would go down very well with players indeed. Now, if we move back across the seas to Lordaeron, we, right now, already have seen the first signs of a new organization named the Scarlet Brotherhood. Yes, the Scarlets are back, and their pamphlets were added to the game in patch 8.3, and unfortunately to little fanfare. Not many people noticed, but we did do a full lore video on it. And yes, they are the Scarlet Brotherhood, just like the Scarlets that we started today's video off with. They are radicals in the light. Now, we are definitely going to be seeing more of them when we come out of the Shadowlands. Blizzard obviously established that group for a reason, and certainly a group of light fanatics would be a pretty darn good fit for a light antagonist expansion. So bringing that together, we see a cast of light-aligned characters. We see their struggles, and we see the people who would be able to, well, navigate a conflict with Yrel in whatever way. Some of them, I think, would join her, others would resist. I think it's a group of characters, really, in today's video, who would each feel different pushes and pulls, who would all have internal conflicts between serving themselves, serving their belief system, and then fighting for the freedom of their people once they actually see what the light does. I mean, those Alliance characters, they're going to see Yrel and co come through the Dark Portal. They're going to remember, oh, they were our allies a very, very short time ago. We got on great. We fought the Burning Legion and defeated Archimonde together. Wonderful. So the Alliance characters are going to believe Yrel. She looks like an ally. She was an ally in the past. What's going to happen when the rubber meets the road? Will the Alliance, with characters like Gen Greymane, who are really Warhawks, will they trust the testimony of the Mag'har orcs? I can't say I'm particularly sure, and certainly that is going to be a major political situation that I really do think is on the very near horizon after the Shadowlands expansion. So to conclude today's video, we're going to learn a lot in the Shadowlands. We've already found out that the Jailer is Titan++ in terms of power. And then, if you actually think about the BFA onwards Elune stuff, and then remember her tie-in to the Prime Naru, as we've talked about in this video, well, it's all more tied together than you would think, because Shadowlands is going to explore loads of the Night Warrior and Elune. I think it's pretty darn clear that the team at Blizzard want to take the narrative in a slightly different direction than we maybe first thought, and I don't think we'll really get to grips with whatever they have in mind until we've actually delved into the ancient crypts and defeated the Mossworn and run Torghast a few thousand times, until we actually, and this is where it really matters, until we know what Titan++ means. Because that's how Blizzard in interviews describe the power of the Jailer. And if the Jailer is Titan++, then surely other characters out there are Titan++ in terms of power as well. And perhaps one of those characters is called Elune. And for the Jailer, who banished him? We need to find that out. What does he want with Azeroth's World Soul? And I would really imagine that those lore reveals would be, obviously, things that would tie in to the expansion after the Shadowlands. So yes, I think thematically, a Light versus Us expansion has been set up. The key characters and their positions in that conflict have also been set up. Truly, I think that all we really need is one Shadowlands worth of small lore reveals to actually make all of that a reality. So there you go. That is today's video. It feels great to get back into just a big, chunky, traditional lore video. I just love being able to sit down here, put all the evidence out, draw it together in fun ways, bring you guys a theory. It is some of the stuff that I just enjoy the most about this channel. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you for all your support. If you want to support the channel, then hey, your likes, your subs, and all of that, supporting our sponsors like today's one as well. And yeah, just with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your theories are. And with that said, I'll see you next time.